Technology is a blessing and an exploding miracle as long as we remember that we invented it and it didn't invent us. There are some things that only humans can do. Each of us here, each of us listening, is the result of billions of years of environment and heredity combined in a unique way that could never have happened before and could never happen again. That's why this forum is the highest use of technology. You have used technology to bring us together physically in this room. After all, we have reflector cells in our brains that allow us to empathize with each other, to sense what the other person is feeling, but they only work when we're together. Our brains produce the neurochemical oxytocin that allows us to bond with each other, to tend and befriend, as scientists say. But that only works when we are together, too. Think about it. You can't raise a baby digitally. And we can't raise each other digitally either. We have to bond through our senses that multiply each other. That's why it's so important that we gather across all the boundaries of sex and race and class and ethnicity and geography, and SBS has given us this as a huge gift. If we don't gather in our shared humanness, we will go on believing in false divisions. So I am so proud to be the first ever female speaker, keynote speaker, and I'll be even more proud when I'm one of many speakers. After all, it was a woman, Dr. Grace Murray Hopper, who invented the very first computer language. It was a woman, Sandy Lerner, who invented the router on which all of Cisco is based. True women have been more present as inventors than as investors, as creators, rather than corporate officers. But that is part of the bias that has limited human talent, and as a result of that, everyone loses. If women don't have more time to work in the public sphere, we won't expand the limits of technology and understand it as well. And if men raise children more, they would understand the limits of technology. In fact, culturally speaking, networking and connecting are female specialties. For eons, they have been female specialties. So I'm glad men are beginning to learn them, and I hope you consult more experts. Yes, we were all invited to this forum through technology. Yes, we could learn about each other's work through technology, and we'll stay in touch, I hope, through technology after this forum. And I'm so grateful that we can also use technology to spread whatever we learn intellectually here to others who were not present in this room. And there's a brain chemical for that too. It's called dopamine. It's the reward transmitter that gives us a hit of pleasure. Every time we learn something new, we understand something new. It's that wonderful feeling of aha. It's a kind of mental orgasm of, oh, I understand that. And that is important too. And in fact, both oxytocin and dopamine help produce the glorious neuroplasticity that keeps us rewiring and adding synapses to our brains for our entire lives. Most of our brains develop outside the womb, which makes us uniquely vulnerable to our surroundings. In other words, if people think we're valuable, we're valuable. And if people think we're not so valuable, we're not so valuable. We agree. The good news of being human is that we are adaptable, and the bad news of being human is that we are adaptable. It's why all social justice movements are born in small groups of people supporting each other, whether that is the women's movement worldwide or whether it's Arab Spring. That's where change comes from. You might say that we were created for connectedness and for learning. Other animals think, but only humans think about thinking. Only humans can shape our own evolution by envisioning where we want to go and then adjusting and changing and adapting to that new place. So now I think we would all agree that in this era when old doomsday religions have collided with modern doomsday weapons, when old sexist and racist hierarchies plus national lines drawn in the sand try to convince us that we actually can have different fates, though we are together on a very small spaceship called Earth, we need to make sure technology is increasing our human connectedness, not just running more efficient prisons or chaining us to a workplace in order to buy inanimate objects we don't need, or hypnotizing us. Television has been known as the plug-in drug for a reason, and the internet has addicted at least 20% of our young people in both of our countries who now spend more time with it than with human beings. There is cyberbullying as a result. There is pornography instead of erotica as a result. And in English, porne comes from the word female slavery. Erotica comes from eros, meaning love, free choice, and connection. They're very, very different things, yet we have allowed the pornography industry to pretend that it is uniquely about sex. It is about violence, and it is on the internet, and the internet doesn't know the difference between erotica and pornography. Reproductive freedom must be a human right, like freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of worship. Now women in some poor parts of the world are pressured into destroying their health by having children they don't want, even being married off at 12 years old or 10 years old, in order to create cheap labor so that people in other parts of the world can have profits in objects we don't need. Money and consumerism so unsatisfying and so disconnecting from the human race that suicide rates are up among the rich and educated and even among the young and famous. And here's the most crucial and basic message of how we get out of this and back to our 95% of human history circular, connected selves. If even one generation of children were raised without violence and without shame, with love for their uniqueness, they would have the core self-esteem, being intrinsically worthwhile as a unique human being that protects them against an obsession with situational self-esteem, with endless need for objects, for money, for consumerism that can never, ever satisfy. If we could raise even one generation of children with confidence and without violence, we have no idea what might be possible on this spaceship Earth. Finally, women worldwide are peacemakers, not because we are more moral than men and not even because we are less violent than men, but we just haven't been brought up with our masculinity to prove. Just as the Irish peace women put an end to centuries of violence there by uniting against violence in the home, that both Catholic and Protestant women suffered, and they well understood that violence in the home was what was creating the violence in the street. And just as women in Liberia united across religious lines to oust a dictator, defeat warlords, and elect a woman in a democratic election, you may find that women in North and South Korea are bridges to reunification. Let them lead the process from the bottom up, as well as in government negotiations down. There are great and brave feminist leaders in this audience right now. I honor them and I trust them. I also honor the many men who are feminists. If there is more virtue where there is more choice, then men who could have male privilege and refuse it are more virtuous than the rest of us who have less choice, and I salute you and thank you and call you brothers. There is a reason why circles are the strongest form in nature. We need to see ourselves as linked rather than ranked. God may be in the details, but the goddess is in connections, and we need both. We need a declaration of interdependence. We hope that that will be the mark of the digital revolution. Will it be? The answer is blowing in the wind. What we must refrain from doing is putting our finger to the wind and saying what will happen. what we must do is ourselves in this room become the wind. Thank you.